right. So with the league wrapping up, I thought it would be cool to take a look at some of the league exclusive ideas and gameplay elements that could actually make for really ideal ports into the live game. And as you saw by the title, I think that there are 5 really strong candidates that could make great additions to the actual game. So let's get right into it. Number 1 is the Infinite Gmall. This would be fine in the main game, right? Okay, I'm just kidding. Number 1 for real is enhanced mobility. At tier 3 in the league, all movement abilities had their cooldowns reduced from 20 seconds down to 4.8 seconds. Now, in the main game, you can get your mobility cooldowns as low as 10 seconds by using the mobile perk. So the league, it was twice as fast as that. Funnily enough, in the league, you could actually stack that passive effect with the mobile perk and get down to 2.4 second mobility. But that's a little bit silly and too preposterous for the main game. However, I really do think that the 4.8 second mobility could be such a huge addition to the main game, and it doesn't just have to be passive, raw power creep like it was in the league. I'll have a proposition for that in a moment, but just to touch on how nice the movement was this league. It really made the game world feel like a playground in the best way possible. Being able to zoom through arduous quest locations like the infamous Edgar's Ruse Mountain of Backtracking really helped the pacing and the feel of progression through some of the older quests and areas that just haven't aged quite as gracefully as others. Additionally, this would offer a further increase to the skill ceiling for clue scroll focused players and even PVM focused players. With 5 second mobility, you open a lot of interesting doors to using mobility as a key element of future gameplay and encounter design. While I certainly recognize that this would be a really big buff for all players, and it might render some previously tricky movement challenges obsolete, I really do hope that this is something the developers explore and play around with in the main game. It could be especially interesting for the upcoming level 110 skill expansions, most notably for agility, of course. Imagine some new agility courses that really emphasized using your mobility abilities to train the skill instead of merely clicking on a log bridge over the river over and over again. Or imagine a new tier of Grandmaster clue scrolls that ask the player to trek through perilous dungeons riddled with booby traps that can only be effectively crossed with enhanced mobility. So my last iterative idea on this point is the idea of making this reward an invention perk. In the same way that in the main game we have the devoted and enhanced devoted perks, imagine if we had the mobile and enhanced mobile perks. That could introduce another layer of balance by forcing players to make a choice if that enhanced mobility is worth giving up an entire gizmo slot for a single perk. Anyway, some of the other ideas we'll look at in this video won't be quite so in-depth, but I really do think enhanced mobility has a lot of potential and deserves to be explored for the main game. Number 2 is mining geodes. So in the main game, whenever you're training mining, you have a chance at gathering some geodes. There are 3 different tiers, and just for simplicity, I'll call them small, medium, and large. And in the small and medium geodes, the rewards just completely suck. In the best case scenario, you get like an uncut sapphire or an uncut ruby. And more often than not, you get a single spirit shard worth 25 GP. At that point, honestly, I would rather not even get these things in the first place, and I would rather have one more inventory slot freed up for more ore. The highest tier geode, the metamorphic geodes, are actually really fair, and they are pretty exciting whenever you do get them, but the first 2 tiers of geodes might as well be Ukthanki Dung. In the league, however, with the tier 1 excavator perk, geodes had a chance of giving archaeology materials. Now, how much cooler would it be, particularly for Iron Men and the countless archaeology and mining enthusiasts out there, if the crappy geodes we have currently had a chance of occasionally giving a couple of archaeology materials? And it certainly doesn't have to be nearly as many as you were getting in the league. Like, it's clearly very, very strong in the league. But I would feel much more inclined to actually open my geodes in the main game if every now and then I could get, say, 3 to 4 Imperial Steel or 5 to 6 Blood of Orcus, instead of letting tens of hundreds of thousands of geodes that you will inevitably gather from training mining just go completely to waste, collecting dust in your bank. Porting this concept over from the league could be such a simple, but such a well-received update for many players. Number 3 is alking at the speed of disassembly. Now, this one might get me some flack here and might be a bit more divisive, but bear with me. So in the league at tier 6 with the Perfection Relic, everything that you disassemble will also be high alch, effectively meaning that you can do 60 high alchemies in about a minute, instead of maybe only 12 casts of high alchemy in the main game per minute. Now obviously, the 2-for-1 benefit of gaining invention materials and money from alching is way too powerful for the main game. That's not what I'm suggesting at all here. But what if instead we introduced a new high level spell that was a tier above high alchemy? You could call it something like Giga Alchemy or Highest Alchemy. You would still get the same GP per alch, but the Giga Alchemy spell could alch a stack of 60 items at the same pace of disassembly. Now, this wouldn't be a buff to the amount of alchables that comes into the game, but it would be a much more viable rate to process alchables for all players, especially for Ironmen. Alchemy machines are a really quite late game upgrade for most Irons and most players, and the middle game stage of having to manually alchemize hundreds and thousands of low tier to medium tier salvages is a pain point for a lot of players. So my Giga Alchemy spell proposal is something that can not only bridge that gap, but introduce a new, effective, an efficient way of actively processing bulk alchables. You would be speeding up the pace of that boring chore so that you can get back to the actually fun activities you want to do. And hey, maybe this is another cool place that you could put time runes into practice. You could make the spell cost more nature runes than high alchemy, sinking even more of those, and you add time runes for narrative cohesion, saving you time, and you've got yourself a banger quality of life update right there, if I do say so myself. Number 4 is Enhanced Melee Range. In the league with the Tier 5 Melee Combat Relic, all melee weapons received a blanket +1 tile increase to their attack range. I both love and hate that idea for the main game, but let me explain. A blanket increase to every weapon's attack range would be wildly inappropriate in my opinion. It would make zero sense to see a short 3-inch dagger having a 2-tile attack range, or a short close quarters weapon like a warhammer, maul, or mace suddenly bashing skulls from Narnia out of nowhere. That would be completely stupid. And it was okay in the league, but let's also try to be somewhat pragmatic about the main game. I hate the idea of a universal blanket increase to the attack range. However, I love the idea of niche increases to attack range. What if long swords, for example, got the +1 tile increase to their attack range? It's right there in the name even, they're long swords. So of course you could hack and slash from 2 tiles away with long swords, which that might also come with an added benefit of making the often underused and underappreciated flurry ability just that much more interesting and viable. So additionally to the idea of increasing some niche weapons attack range up to 2, I am enamored with the idea of increasing some weapons attack range from 2 up to 3. And the number one candidate who is just radiating with potential, of course, is the newly released Tumakin's Light. It's already the sickest melee weapon in the game from a lore, mechanical, and visual design perspective. If you suddenly put 3 tile range on this bad boy, tagging even more monsters, shooting out even more beams of light, it is just too cool to think about. And even this whole idea can tie back into invention, just like that enhanced mobility idea from earlier, where you absolutely could introduce this as just a default mechanic of these weapons, or you could also introduce a new invention perk that adds +1 attack range to your weapon. You could call it like noodle arms or elastic or something like that. It would probably be niche as heck, but isn't that what invention is all about? Introducing some niche, interesting, sometimes quirky gameplay mechanics to your gear. So that's all for this idea, but this enhanced range for certain melee weapons is probably my second favorite idea in the whole bunch here, right behind enhanced mobility. And lastly, number 5 coolest idea from the league that could fit into the main game is melee healing. In the league, again with the melee combat relic, all of your abilities healed you for 10% of the damage that you dealt. So if you hit a 10k, you would heal 1000 HP just like that. Obviously, that is way, way, way too powerful for the main game. Now, haters of this concept will often cite that for high level players, there really should be no need for any sort of healing within a combat style. For them, the Necromancy Ghost is already completely offensive, and so is this idea. Okay, that's fine. But not everyone is a high level player. In fact, the vast majority are not. And there's already precedence in game for melee having some healing properties. So I'll just point out a couple. You have, of course, the Excalibur, which is a sword that heals you. You have Vampirism Scrimshaws, which is an item that exclusively works with melee and it heals you every ability you use. You also have the Vampiric Blood Essence, which is again basically the same thing, a melee exclusive item that heals you. Now it's probably pretty subtle, but like I said, there is some precedence and established design that under some circumstances, melee can be a style that heals you. So far in this video, I've tried to avoid just saying, let's bring this from the league and put it in the main game. I've tried to offer some idea of why and where I think it should come from. So here's my proposal on how to introduce a heavily modified and severely toned down version of the melee healing that we saw in the leagues. So my favorite idea is Greater Berserk ability. I first suggested a version of Greater Berserk before the Amasket release, where maybe it had an increased duration on Berserk and it outright got rid of the extra damage that you take under Berserk. But in today's version of the idea, what if you kept taking that increased damage with Berserk, but you also had a chance to heal a little bit of your HP back? Maybe you could also introduce a side grade to Berserk that could tie into the future Havenhithe updates. So in the same way that Magic gives you the option to choose between Sunshine and Metamorphosis for your damage boosting ultimate ability, imagine if you had a shorter version of Berserk, the Metamorphosis version, and it could be something like a Vampiric Berserk, tied directly into Havenhithe that lets your melee abilities heal you during the duration of that side grade Berserk. You would be sacrificing some damage in exchange for healing. So there are a lot of cool ideas that I can think of for Havenhithe content, but maybe that's for another video. And this is just one way that I can think of that would be narratively and mechanically consistent to introduce melee healing from the league into the main game without being completely busted like it was in the league. So there you have it. Those were my top 5 interesting league exclusive ideas that I would like to see ported into the main game in some form of fashion. Enhanced mobility, archaeology materials from geodes, alking at the speed of disassembly with a new Giga Alk spell, enhanced melee range for some weapons, and melee healing slash greater vampiric berserk. So do let me know if you agree with any of these ideas, if you think they're interesting and would like to see them as well, or if you think they're totally out of touch and completely whack. Also let me know if you have any different league exclusive mechanics that you would like to see brought into the main game. That's going to be it for this video though, something a little bit different, just a bit of nerdy passion for the game, coming through completely unfiltered. Let me know if you'd like this style of video and consider sharing this one with friends, subscribing, and all of the fun YouTube engagement stuff. I do really appreciate all that. Thank you very much for watching and see you soon.